welcome to our episode with Kristen Fantry. Kristen Fantry has been someone I've worked with since the very first year that I've been in Connect-Quat. Back in, if we want to do a date, back in 2015. I have to say you were one of the first high school teachers that I met with, worked with. The new boards came in and Kristen was one of the first ones to contact me to be like, hey, what's new with my board? What's going on? So we welcome her to this episode on ReFre5hed. And Kristen is our district-wide mentor. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about what she used to do as a teacher, followed by what she's doing here as the mentor.
Sure. I spent about 9 years at the high school here as a business teacher. Taught all different classes: personal finance, entrepreneurship, marketing, all those things that go along with business education. And then about 3 years ago, I transitioned into the district mentor position, which means that I work with all teachers district-wide, no matter what grade level, in their first through fourth year with the district. So New York State has a requirement for all new teachers that they have to be mentored, hopefully in their first year. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, but in their first few years. And then Connect-Quat has this great program where we stay with them up through tenure. So in the first year, I meet that New York State requirement. We have weekly meetings. I support them on all sorts of things, like just the stress of being a new teacher, time management, getting to know new technology, and being acclimated to the district. And then we have a gradual release of responsibility, and we let them go and fly like little birds. And then they get their tenure, hopefully in their fourth year, and then they're off on their own. So I think it's a great program. I think it does a lot to support new teachers and all the challenges that they face in those first few years. So.
Definitely. And you said gradual release, and that's usually what we use for technology too. For technology integration is that gradual release method where we're meeting with the teacher, we're prepping with the teacher, getting them, ready to teach that lesson. We're sometimes there for the lessons too, and then we have that gradual release, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know sometimes when you meet with teachers, that's basically what it is. It's looking at their lessons, their lesson structures, things of that nature.
Absolutely. A lot of them need help just in general with time management and how you get done all the things you need to get done in a day. They need help prioritizing. I do get to go in as a non-evaluative observer as well, which is very fun for me because I get to go into kindergarten classrooms and high school classrooms and French and like all these different things. And I'm just there to just give them some feedback in general and in a non-threatening way and just say like, hey, this is what I saw, or I might have tried this in that situation, and it helps me to get to know them as a teacher, and it just creates this great dialogue between us. So
I think it's a good reflective piece too for us and for them. Like I always say when I'm going into classrooms, it's not always a subject that I'm familiar with. When I was a classroom teacher, I was based in the elementary realm. So going into a high school class, like even when I used to push into Kristen's classes, it was she's teaching content and I'm like, wait, what? Like, what are you doing? And then like I would get ideas just from seeing her content, and I'm like, wait, I can apply this piece of technology with her content, and that's how we're marrying the two sides of things.
Well, that's the thing, right? There's these core pieces of every lesson. It doesn't matter what the content is. So there are certain things that remain the same in every classroom, regardless of grade level or content, and good teaching is good teaching, right? So whether that involves technology or not, there's these pieces that go across the board.
I think that's the best part of just teaching in general. It doesn't matter what you teach, it doesn't matter the subject area. So with the thought of good teaching is good teaching, no matter what content area, there is a speaker who I saw, his name is Weston Kieschnick. I think I said that right, hopefully.
Yeah, I think you did.
I remember when I first saw his last name, I'm like, I'm going to butcher this. But then a few years ago, I went to see him at BOCES, and he came in for a training, and he really spoke about just teaching practices in general. And what's neat about that is that he mentioned his strategy basically called Bold School. And he broke it down, and he spoke about identifying your objective is the most important, and really maintaining a lesson plan that's fluid. And lesson plan, not talking about paper, but like in your mind, like how should a lesson look, lesson development, the expectations that you should have of yourself and your students, And what's really neat about that is when he explained it, it just made so much sense. And I think that his strategy is something that we should just reflect on more, because sometimes I think you're just so fast-paced with everything going on. You're going to PDs on different, areas. Like we have math PD going on now, literacy. There's so many things going on that sometimes you're just trying to fit everything in. But in reflection, like his flowchart of how things should be in a classroom really, I think, helps lesson development.
I think he expanded on that. His second book was called Educator's Atlas, and each letter in Atlas stands for a piece of that framework. So I think he fine-tuned it over the years and gave you this model that you could really implement in any classroom, which of course I can't remember what all the letters stand for right now.
Yeah.
I know A is for attention, but I don't remember the rest.
So I know I could speak about Bold School a little bit more because I saw him speak about that and read his book and everything. So his initial intent was your objective first and foremost, then your instructional strategy, which sometimes I think we lose a little bit of. You're like, okay, well, I want the kids to be able to, add 2 digits by 2 digits, right? But then it's like, okay, how are we getting them to do that? What's your instructional strategy? After that should be technology. What in technology are you implementing to enhance your lesson?
Right.
And then your final, bit of reflection and so on and so forth. And sometimes when I think about that flow, it's funny that I come in step 3 and I try to tell teachers, that's where technology should be. Although my title has technology in it, there's not a need to even put technology in every single lesson. It's where you see fit. It's the appropriateness of the technology for the kids, especially, the K-2. I personally do not agree that they should be on the technology all the time.
Right.
And with that said, how are you fitting it in?
Right.
For the length of time, there's so many factors to really think about in regards to that.
I just spoke about this with all my new teachers at our first full day training, which was last week. And we talk about best practices for incorporating technology and how sometimes I'll say to a teacher, what are you doing today? And they'll say, I'm doing a Kahoot. And I'm like, that's not what you're doing. That's your tool.
Correct, yeah.
So we go through that. We talk about you have to have that, like you mentioned, the strategies first. And sometimes technology is a complement and sometimes it enhances what you're doing, but other times it doesn't. So it's not always a necessity.
Right.
I think that having that general framework that you can apply anywhere is so important.
Right. And sometimes I do see where backwards design can take place where it's okay, we have these tools, and sometimes I have to work that way. I have the tools. I'm carrying around Nearpod. I'm carrying around, all the Google products, Book Creator, Screencastify. There's all these tools, and someone will be like, I really want to try Nearpod. How am I fitting Nearpod into this? And then it's like, okay, I can work backwards to say, okay, basically what I'm doing is I'm skipping my step to understand what they're trying to do.
Right.
And their instructional strategy, and then I'm trying to fit in piece 3 there.
It's asking all those questions to pull out what you need, right?
Right. So with that said, I know that in February we have an upcoming technology PD.
We do.
Your new teachers. We're going to
still
get
fleshing out all the ideas, I think, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas on the horizon. We're going to be meeting about that soon. And so where technology comes in with the new teachers is basically exposing them to what we have, right? Because there's so many tools that we have, and coming in as a new teacher, you can be overwhelmed by all the resources. I know if you go into class links, sometimes the names are just intimidating. If I'm not clicking on them, it's just a bunch of apps and web links and all of these things. So our goal for the new teachers is to really identify what they're doing in their classrooms and how can we select the most appropriate tool to meet their objectives, and all going back to that format.
Right. I think what you said, there's just so many things to choose from, and you don't know where you should spend your time. Sometimes you can get, you go down the rabbit hole, and then you're like, you can spend a lot of time creating a lesson, and maybe it's not something that has, that staying power, that you've done all this effort, and maybe you won't end up using it next year. So you're right. You do a great job of helping teachers focus their energy in places where it's going to benefit them the most.
And you really, I think the most important advice for new teachers is you do not have to use all of them.
No, less
Find
is more.
what you jive with.
Yes.
Not everyone's going to jive with the same tool. He's working off a MacBook. I have a MacBook. I'll tell you that I'm more of a HP person, I'm more of a PC, I'm not really into Macs. Will I use a Mac? Of course I will, but if you gave me a choice, I'll use a different device.
Right.
So not every classroom experience is going to be the same in regards to the tools that you're using. Just because the teacher next door is using Kahoot doesn't mean that you have to use Kahoot. There's a comparable to that if you wanted to visit that.
Absolutely.
So that's really important to note. Last pieces, we're going to bring in Kevin for the technical side. So for the new teachers, there's a lot of preparation.
Yes.
That goes in on the technical side of everything. I wish it were as easy to say that we just have all of these Chromebooks awaiting for their arrival when they sign their piece of paper that they're employed by Connect Watson.
Wouldn't that be magical?
Yeah.
Right? But there's a lot of communication.
Pick it off the shelf.
There's a lot of communication that happens between the instructional side for new teachers and mentoring and the technical side. So I want to hear a little bit about that process of your process on once they onboard, what are we doing about their devices, their usernames, their password, like all of their accounts? How is that happening? Besides with a magic
Kevin knows all the back end stuff. I usually
Yeah.
send you a list and then magic happens.
So obviously, like usually, I'm pretty sure like it comes from HR and like just communication, just a list of who these new teachers are, what buildings they're going to. So usually that comes to our department.
We should mention the fun part is that you don't usually have a complete list.
Yes.
Until August 30th, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And that's reality.
But also, it's never usually even like that's not usually finalized because there's things that happen, like just moving parts. So it's whatever. That's IT for you though. Like that's the reality of it. So user accounts creations need to happen. We have to set passwords that need to be changed on the first login for the first time.
Right.
There's a Google account component to it. Besides logging into your regular computer, it needs to be linked on the Google end so you can use your Chromebook so you can get to your Google resources, your Google Drive. There's device assignments that happen depending on the building, location, the grade, depending on what you're teaching. If you're getting a Chromebook, if you're getting, some of the elementary schools have iPads.
Yep.
There's a
Put me
lot
on
of
the
parts.
spot.
Yeah.
No, there is a lot of parts.
Yeah,
It's just a lot.
And so I'm going to ask you this. For every new person that's hired, how many people in the department get to oversee
That's a good
these
question.
new moving parts? So you have account creation, you have device assignments, you have the Google piece of it, you have all of these moving pieces on the back end. So how many IT employees would you say?
One person up
like,
and running?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's not all on one person.
Right.
I would say probably at a minimum, probably at least 3 people that have to be attentive to this.
Right.
Making sure the passwords will sync up together, making sure spelling is correct, communicating with HR, and making sure that like they're in the right building assignments. I'll just use Jen as an example. Her being like the email person, she has to make sure that like even like the accounts sit in the correct buildings, because then email distribution lists don't flow the correct way.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into it that any normal end user would be like, oh, it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to point out that think of the yearly changes, not just the new teachers, but our yearly changes in assignments.
Right.
If you're working at Cherokee one year and then you're back to Ronkonkoma Middle School.
Right. Traveling teachers is a big thing.
Traveling teachers, so you're in multiple buildings.
So and it's funny because even like this for me, on my part of things too, with like direct print being rolled out throughout the district. Making sure that teachers are in the right locations, but like traveling teachers right now, it's a manual process for me. I have to know what buildings they're in and assign them to the printers that they need access to.
There's quite a few traveling teachers.
Yeah, there definitely is. So it's just funny how like all this, it all ties together, but it is a very big like process. And think about this too, is like besides your yearly changes, is that when there's a board meeting, we have new hires, we have people that retire, we have people that,
leave of absences,
things like that. All those changes come through the IT department through a select few people, and those all have to be processed on like a bi-weekly, depending on how often they have meetings, or monthly basis throughout the school year. Besides that big chunk that happens in the end of summer.
Beginning.
Yeah.
It's good times.
Yeah, it's quite the Quite the journey.
So once they establish everything on the back end for us, we have new teacher orientation. We dedicate a whole day to technology, really. So they come in, you guys distribute their devices, troubleshoot anything that's not working properly, and then we have to onboard them as far as things like what email program we use, because when you come from different districts, everybody uses something different. What how to get into and use eSchool, ClassLink, Google. Like, we're showing them all of those things in one afternoon, like one day. They all go home and they're like glazed over by the time they leave here.
Look like technology zombies.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's also Halloween, guys, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
Nice little tie.
That's a good segue. I like that.
Hence the candy. I also have like this residing cough that's going on, so have some mints. Kristen was nice enough to go grab me some stuff. Happy Halloween, trick or treat.
Trick or treat, yeah. This is a sad little trick or treat.
Yeah. So there are a lot of moving components on the back end. The front end, we have, like you said, that afternoon of just device rollout. It's really nice to see the tech team also come to that day, because they're doing all the hard work on the back, but it's really, I think, a token that they get to see the teachers signing into the devices and seeing all the work that they do brought to life.
It's also nice for the teachers to put faces to your names, because there's a
right.
lot of emailing back and forth, and they don't always know who you guys are. So.
Right. Yeah.
And vice versa, really.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. So, with that said, we have a little activity that we do at the end of every week, every episode. It's Fall Fitness with ReFre5hed.
Okay.
And it's not really workout related, but it's just like a little thing that you can do to get going, feel better, and all of that sort of stuff. So
wellness in general.
Yeah, wellness in general. So last week, our guest speaker, Elizabeth Weiss, had us pumpkin picking and fall activities and just getting out there and doing those activities, nice family time, etc. So we would like to ask you, what is something that you would like our listeners to incorporate into their week?
So we have this thing in my family, really, that we do now. It's called Project Sunshine. And when you're feeling a little gloomy, you have to go outside and you have to get a little bit of sunshine, whether that means taking a walk, or I will take my kids over to the beach in like February. We bundle up and we'll go over, and you just get a little sun on your face, and it can change your whole outlook on everything. So we call that Project Sunshine in my house.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we are challenging them to
Yes.
find the sunshine.
Yeah.
That means we get to go outside now, guys.
Yes.
Not these lights. These lights don't count.
No, definitely not. They're bright, but not.
You have
the
to get
sun.
out from behind your computer
Yes.
and go outside.
Yes. We gotta listen to that advice more too.
Yeah, definitely.
Every track, everyone's giving us a piece of advice, and we look at each other really like, we could use that.
You should do that. You're gonna have
We
a
should
whole
do that.
repertoire by the time.
Yeah.
I try doing that every day on lunch. I try to go outside. I try to sit at our little table out there when it's not raining, obviously. So,
Yeah, this rain's been a killer lately.
It has.
but yeah, sunshine's good.
All right.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And everyone, go outside and get some sunshine.